다들 이제 Kagyu Monlam king susumbe 다 의식이 단 레짐 니마 당부디 임베레 다 디톨이야 치규 남베 잡지를 무슨 남번이 우론제 대네 개로계의 신이야 남다 대신도 세계미마 랭게가 상원을야 도마라 가수 섬주샤이
Today is the first day of the program of the actual 33rd Kagyu Monlam. And so I'd like to begin by welcoming the two Lords of Refuge, Jamgad and Gyaltsab Rinpoche, as well as all of the Kempos, Masters, all of the members of the ordained Sangha and lay people.
다 다른데 말람 의식 겁리야 쉬야 돼 가담베 다 가담 꾸체 숨세 용서 차대와 디난 되네 가담베 계획 신인 첨부 다 계시 보도에 로종 칠럽지 뮤기 토네마 지취시샤인.
And so today, as the teaching during the actual Monlam, I would like to teach from the long soliloquy by the one of the three great forefathers of the Kadampa lineage, the great Kadampa master Potowa.
천년 제외 걸려야 가르쳐야 되는 지게 최 제바보이면이야 센디에 군론다 만져베 관에 최시에 고요래 최년바보이면이야 아니 이 수든 팀베 관에 최년 고요.
When we are teaching and listening to the Dharma, the teacher must teach the Dharma with a motivation that is not connected with the aims of this life. And likewise, the listeners must also listen properly.
대라양 최년배 근론데 지기 뇌기 교수님들 만져배 관에 지기 가르쳐 미튼초 아가다 뇌기 교수님들 만져배 관에 최년 고요하래.
And so the motivation for listening should be listening with a motivation that is not mixed with the three faults of the three faults of the different types of vessels.
다들랑 당 뇌기 교수님들 당부디 카부부터 비교해서래. 다들 가르쳐서라서나 배나 쓸당 우유 뇌라 소배기 뇌 상에 컨디션이 비네야. 디 카부니 샤샤비미나 추 컨디 지지지 로베이네야. 나도 민조아. 난신기 지 르부디 지 최슈제 잘이야. 대여비미냐. 소소기 최대 암조 야보 많이 했지. 네, 지 나와 될이야. 아니. 지 가서 르바 마데바 될 제비나. 안 최도고야만.
And so of the three faults of a vessel, the first is being like a vessel that is upside down, or a bowl that is upside down. So no matter what type of bowl you have, whether it be gold or silver or any other type of bowl, if it is upside down, no matter how much water you pour into it, none of it will remain in the dish or the bowl. Likewise, we might be sitting physically in the hall among the ranks of those listening to the Dharma, but if we do not listen, if we do not direct our attention to what is coming in through our ears, then we will not receive the Dharma.
에너지 부방 이공도 제외입니다. 추가제 루비나 나라 메차버치 칠로 된로레스. 다가나 신기 암초기 녀베 있네야 야지 가르레지 리버 딤제 엔 식전 일라 마시비 이미나 식제 된춘로래 식제 된춘소나 되네 냠소 렘베 저 냠소 렌다 마시 바로 찬로요 디 디균zel 되네 나외왕부 냠바 나외왕부 냠바 좀도 마세비 이기시바 때네 식전 만제바 야보지지 다 가ጆ에 년과디 계속 잡아
The second fault is being like a leaky bowl. And so even if a bowl is right side up, if it has a crack or a hole in the bottom, then then when you pour water into it, that water will not stay. It'll just spill out the bottom or flow out the bottom. Similarly, when we're listening to the Dharma, if we listen to it but we do not pay attention to the words and we do not catch and hold on to the words, then we will forget the words and the meaning, and then we will not know how we should practice. And so not only do we need to listen to the words, we also need to focus our mental consciousness on them and listen so that we do not forget the words and the meaning.
다드네 숨바디 네 두젠더 위견 숨바레 네 두젠더 위견 될래야 직니르 지원디 알았어.
The third type is of a vessel with poison in it, and there are two types of this.
다 두젠스도 가르쳐렸잖아. 네 지금 나로래 독지예베체. 독예베 인도사 디 나로래 칼라야부 컨지지베 세베미네야 디 독단제베 칼라차디예베 인도사 아주 살로 말했어. 다가나 신기 아주기 최년베 겁리야 간다지 수수기 심규디 지 군론 장마 메이비체 군론 양다바 메이바 군론 년바단 제제 아니 최년베 이비나 아니 독단제베 세신 차도레스.
So if there is poison in the bottom of a bowl, then you may put whatever food you put in it will not be suitable to eat. Likewise, when we're listening to the Dharma, if we do not have a pure motivation in our mind, if we have an unclear, or if we have a motivation that is mixed with bad motivations, then it is like poisoned food and something that we should not take.
대라야, 다 독 민자 링민자 니르 줘야 돼. 다디 찍대 가라 심지 찔리야. 간다라 유에데베 전신행게 유에데베 사람 민도 다 간다지 그 심지 찌겹리야 유에데베게 지 차당모 송게 독디 릭지.
Now there are two different types of the poison. The first of these are the greed, hatred, and desire that all sentient beings have, that are naturally present in all sentient beings. So this is one of the types of poison.
대인주산에 다시 다 텐저비 독디 간데지레산 다정 아주지 남준지 세고 내멜라 소바 론지 지민 지 천년라 첨부요 다 다는 신기지 유튜브차라 소다 되게 딱 안다 디토를 배 샤바침부여 된게 디토는 대바침부여 된게 다 된지기 토네지 가르쳐지 최년배 걸리면에 딱 알아지 야고 지 총람도 주는 선바로 당 다나 신기 간다지 가르에 담년라 야고 주는 선바로 된게 체도 최년배이나 다디 묘모번 되샤는 제배 도차리.
And so what is this poison like? Well, it's like when we are listening to the Dharma. If we have great attachment and great desire for food or for clothing, popularity, or becoming rich and prosperous, if we have that sort of attachment, great attachment and desire when we listen, and we think to ourselves, oh, I'm listening to the Dharma so that my business will go well, or so that I'll become popular, become famous, then this is associated with the poison of desire and greed.
다는 신기야 지 최체베 걸려야 야 지, 시당단 제외관 다지 랑게 잘라 당심다 된제게 토네지 야 지 군롱에 받은 제네 최연비나 녀모바 시당단 제외 시당 도단 제외 다지 가져에 뇌로 차리요.
Likewise, when during a Dharma teaching, if our motivation is associated with hatred, for example, if we have malice for our enemies, or that sort of a bad motivation, then we are like a vessel that has filled with poison that is related to the affliction of anger or of hatred.
다들 다는 신기야 지 녀모바 띠무 도단 제와 세두상 가라산다 마시지 망보지 지 최근일로 유세도 하마고체确实的，就朗多个蓝点钱，就我那产业给大家讲，就是三路定啥事了呀？当时就骗把单电话，然了那个是骗把单，他都电话还能吧？等这个就朗多文金钱，等这几嘛，但等这个别朗多文金的，朗多给搞出就三路看没不行，那个是就搞出来的是，就。가수로 좀 고원으로 좀 몽지 드리지기 동안에 최세위는 시다시다 편도 매대로 드리지 있어요.
Now, the affliction of delusion is like when we do not understand the nature of things. We do not realize that the Dharma is teaching us what we need to do and what we should not need to do. It teaches us how we need to think on a more profound and deeper level about benefit and happiness, our temporary benefit and our ultimate happiness. It identifies what we need to do and what we should avoid in order to bring this. But if we do not recognize what we should do and what we should avoid, and instead and do not realize and do not have any thought of what we should do or what we should give up, and listen in this way, then this is mixed with the poison of delusion and misunderstanding.
제상 아주 지금 퇴삼 검수 제거야 디 지금 가르수에 된다는데 가르했잖아. 된저베 따지 요모 두숨다 디 빵체신 아주 뽕을 두다야로 지금 지래. 드린 주사는 지 퇴바 제베들 광부 퇴바 제베 겁네. 빵지게 두 가르이면데 뭐 송니 빵비나 퇴삼 검수 야부 용 거래. 근데 반체 도등 왜 무슨 버체제 에너지 퇴삼 검수배 깨배 바도 제외이네야 딱 거할에 다 따라가고 싶지 않아요. 그래서
The point of our listening, contemplating, and meditating is to eliminate the three poisons of the afflictions. It's to see how well we are able to eliminate them. So for that reason, from the moment we begin listening, we need to recognize and identify what the three poisons are. And if we identify those and eliminate them, then our listening, contemplating, and meditation will go well. If we do not recognize, then we can listen, study, and listen, contemplate, and meditate until we become quite learned. But it will be difficult for us to liberate ourselves from samsara.
와, 다드네 독니바데 가르 준달을 슈베 독스 준달을 슈베 독스야데 신한사버르 자디야래 가르레사나 지당가 알아주 지 럽드 중하다 최고를 슈야디 지딘 탐에베지 뇨모 도숨 시야가 제도 델레 교야가 제도 아주 지 최고를 슈 럽드 중데 제베
Now, the second type of poison is the poison of engaging in philosophy, and this is actually a quite scary one. And the reason for this is that the reason why we go forth, the reason why we enter the gate of the Dharma, is in order to protect ourselves from the three worldly poisons.
다데 베나 지카르에 베나 타보게 유게 라마르 지 군들이야 아니지 겸주슈 and anase rubjungju tindeche ta tene ta 드린 친제 안다 교랑지 nga marda ta 드린 친제 nga랑 거규베 인상 아니지 덕규베 인상 바로 드리지 삼다 다 되네 갈리갈리지 출루 유바 미지베 라마 신달라 다고 거규베 라마 마레 덕규베 라마 마레 제제 아니 코란 초다 리스지에네베 차자면 미제 차자면 미제 띵도 최다 가사라 고아만 못다 되지 차 용두산에 다 멤버로 띵도 신강부 내만한 신기 오늘 저녁에 가르쳐다지 초달을 쇼고를 쇼야디 녀모 도숨시야 셔도 쇼고를 쇼거래디 이내 초달을 쇼니 차당체로서 다가난 신기 초리체로서 다 되네 차 용두산에 되네 지기 체조 zon송다 되네지 다나 신기 기준 상송기 남들 간대지 예비 있네야 다디 지독 첨보단 대백이 다지 세상원은 신도 차시 근데 되게 다 가서야 다 냥가 삼시라요
For example, if we were to go to some master of the Dokbo Kagyu lineage, we go for refuge and then go forth and take ordination. Then from that point on, we begin to say, I'm Kagyu, I'm in the Dokbo Kagyu lineage. And then we think about when we think about the masters of other lineages, we say, oh, they're not Kagyu, they're not in the Dokbo Kagyu. And we start to have more bias, and we have a sectarian clinging. If we don't, then we start not even prostrating to them. And in addition to not even prostrating, we criticize both their dharma and the individuals. Then this is just like adding fuel to a fire. When we enter the gate of the dharma, we enter in order to pacify the three poisons. But by engaging in this philosophy in school, then we increase our attachment and aversions. We increase our sectarian biases. And if we do this, no matter what we do with the Dharma, whether listening, teaching, or debating, or no matter what external form of being learned, venerable, good we have, it is just like food in which great poison has been mixed, and this is a terrible danger.
나로 독 유매 고 따네 뇌제의 장외 이면 따네 안 갈아서 그래서 내가 난생 아주 최외 걸리나래 최년배 걸리나래 간데 지금 퇴상 고서 가르쳐 볼 당봉이래야지 어다 된대요 딱 아주 군농 연방 안 도나지 지 차당 몽송된 젠도 미도 딱제체 되네 진 가수에 제민도나 제 퇴상 고송 그라 자 젠도나 대바 빠네 퇴상 고송 상마지야 배주치야 다디 개침으로 마다베 도단 제예메 자완이는 딱제 마제와 칼라 신부사샤치다 선이 갈갑처럼 봐 선이 드네 주사 디주제데네 안다 디 당분이 토막화는 아주 딱제 제거야지.
And so when you are making food or when you are cooking a meal, then you need to make sure first of all that the dishes do not have any poison in them, and then you have to make sure that they are clean. Similarly, when we are teaching or listening to the Dharma, when we are engaging in listening, contemplating, and meditation, at the very beginning, first of all, we need to check and see whether we have a bad motivation. We need to examine whether our motivation is connected with greed, hatred, and delusion or not. If it is not, then we should engage in the listening, contemplating, and meditating. And if it is, we should do what we can to eliminate that and then listen, contemplate, and meditate with a pure motivation. If we do not even examine ourselves and just go ahead and doing this. It's like if we eat food that has poison in it, it's delicious food, but tomorrow morning we will be in great difficulties. And so in that same way, from the very beginning, we must examine our motivations.
다들랑 포도의 칠업을 못디 지다 차베 꼼부를 시래 다 이번에 나니 아주 monlam 거리야 포도의 칠업을 뭐 시야 최시 샤스미 제래야 안 포도의 칠업을 미기 에네 차베기 빼 숨쉬지 라와 토송 다디지 알아서 뭐지 덴디 첨부르지 미바지 알아도 소리에 안 다나신 지동 자세 나로래 경험이 유도지기 보도의 칠업이 미기 된제도 된기 되버도 지도 수용디 아래 제가 대구마 롱탑의 인상 대규제나 때네 안 보도의 칠업이 못해 된기 롱탑에서 없이 바지 차대도 네 유산 대규제 지당다 보도의 칠업이 못해 가담 고매의 숨 가담 고매 숨되지 유게 더 롱베기 파이게의 유게들 망고 제제 찾고 싶도 와 드레인 주산에 야고지 슈트야 깔아하고도 다 가져도도를 좀 아쉬우이
Now, the text for the long soliloquy by Geshe Potowa is actually a fairly rare text. But last year, after we made the plans to teach it during this Monlam, since that time, I received 3 or 4 different editions or manuscripts of the text. And I think that this is really a very good interdependent connection, a good coincidence. There is a commentary, a meaning commentary on this in the 100 Short Instructions by Mikya Dorje. There's the extended commentary on the long soliloquy by Potowa. And I have received the Lung transmission for this before, and so I think that in essence, in actuality, I have also received the transmission for this long soliloquy. Now, this long soliloquy, being a text by one of the early Kadampa masters, is written in a colloquial, archaic dialect. And so because it's in this very difficult dialect, I may not be able to explain it very well, but I will do my best.
더니지면 계속 보도에 칠러버리면 뒤숨 예라만나면 차서 검순코에 동에 야수 첨본데 뒤 토마메반에 참바다 라스마도베 레네도 셈마도바 디벨레 디바 소소바 마시벨레 소소 마시바 대바메벨레 대바메바 치와 마데메 렘바이 다 코에 동에 인지네 타바다 탐지 캠바 토바는 데베 랑게 셈떡버 제발 디바종 제발 소소발라 대바 샤마디 치와 제소 마데는 미기 치와 샤마르 테니 취미 찌게 미베면 독냠잖아 지딩기 표준 소바 찔라야 로미주거지 용인데 대자나 제다요 제라 차바 띵님에 년들에 셈바 샤마르로네 수양 오미송아지 용도.
The Long Soliloquy by Geshe Potowa. I prostrate to the gurus of the 3 times. Since beginningless time, we have wandered in the great ocean of suffering, the 3 realms of samsara. This is because we have not realized our own mind. We have not realized our own mind because of the obscurations. The obscurations come from not knowing that we should gather the accumulations. Not knowing to gather the accumulations is from lacking faith. We lack faith because of not recalling death. Now that because we fear the suffering of samsara, we want to achieve liberation and omniscience, we must realize the mind. To realize the mind, we must purify the obscurations. To purify the obscurations, we must gather the accumulations. To gather the accumulations, we must have faith. But true faith will not arise if we do not recall death. When you truly remember death and think that nothing other than Dharma will help, you will pay no heed to any of the bounties of the world. At that point, you will have no greed even in the depths of your heart for material things or necessities. Having genuinely lost all attachment to friends and associates, you will curry favor with no one.
다지당기 포도와 계획신이 좀 포도와 사디 생래야 오늘 렌체세 슈요래 대양 안주 내된 신부 주주고 나로네 안 파바 연락주고 넘주 인스들 순도하래 대신도 다 까마보 뒤숨 캠베기 따지 꾸기 껴와 고마이 봐 근데 순도하래 제자디 껴와 고마이 봐 버지 용 제자 더디 기루기 달라마 기루 깨라심보레 롱드 라마를 붙이 롱드 라마를 붙이기 공부고 나로래야 까마베 군주인 진주 지능도 사네 군진 탐부 포도와 군진이바 뒤숨 캠바 소시 공기야 꾸게와 가르쳐지 지 제상 공기 지단디 지단 현의 아주 넘유 지단디다这这个嘛的因为呢다 공기 군진 탐부 포도와스 저디 용자로 지도 심다 제상 뒤숨 캠바도 다 포도위 지 꾸게와 이마들 순고하래 간다랴 다 뒤치글럽스 치글럽스야 돼 아주 하고 봐 수수 지고 계셔야 되더라 봐 수수 지고 계셔야 돼 다 치글럽스야 돼 된다 하시죠 알아 초진이 시험이네 겁들이야 아니 년개민도 다 당화 시험 년개민도 다 수수 지고지 해야 돼 치글럽을 잡되나 마도 아니 다 당화 년개민도 제가 수수 다지 단들이잖아요. 뭐 고주도 이제 고도 다 얘네들이 챙기면도 삼 지수수수 다지 다 삼바교세나 장도 야나지 가수라다지 수수수 지시에 대한 거지. 초진이 되지 대지 투교에는 지금 된다는 거지. 야 된다 찌는 삼다면은 지 직럽 절사 당원에 수수수 지고 가수라다지 심슈우지 파리 당원은 진짜 최고도 편대 최고도 삼바르지 다지 수수 탐삼지 최시로 꿰지 레벨 나로래 지 삼다 최시 꿰다 당원에 지내지 니들지 최고도 단 다다본 니들지 좋으면도 제상 마음반들이 최고도 삼바르지 니들지 수수 심슈 봐야 하는지 단 너는 칠럽세야디 땅 아주 최상월로 지 파고지 밑장강 시에디어 다 딘지금인도 소소소소리야 다 치글럽세나 소소소소리야 다 계시하고 소소소리에 주두르치에는 계시해 랍지자고도 마도 다지 치로를 파카고르지 미신다를 베티 칸나나 어다지 젠 리버티브디 계시해 되비미네야디 펜도면도 녜 최신경 코란리야 냠내요 마 제사디 엔다 가르에 가서 디 루버군이 계시는 신에 지 최치도도 되네 라마 최신게 되서라 냠레메 사마야라로 냠레요 말아서 냠레메가 다 최사라스 드린주산에 디소를 차지 다티 된다로 버지 니에서 칠럽사
The great spiritual master Potowa was, his actual name was Rinchen, and he is said to have been a reincarnation or emanation of one of the 16 arhats, Angaja. And he is also sometimes explained to have been the previous incarnation of the first Karmapa Dusun Khenpa. In fact, there is a great Gelugpa Lama, Wongdo Lama, in his collected works, when he lists the incarnations of the Karmapas, he says first Potowa and then second Dusun Khenpa. So this is a different way of counting it from how we normally count it. So he said that first there was Potowa and then second was Dusun Khenpa. So this is a well-known way of counting the Karmapa. Now this text is called the Long Soliloquy. So a soliloquy means that you're speaking to yourself. And when you talk about it, there are a couple of different ways you can understand this. One way that you can understand this is that it means that there's no one to listen. No matter how much you talk, there's no one who will listen. And so when you speak, the only person you can speak to yourself. No matter how many instructions you give, there is no one who will listen to the instructions, no matter how valuable they are. And so for that reason, it is like a rather discouraged or depressing, and there's no one else to speak to but yourself. And so there's a sort of sadness or weariness to this. Yet another way to think about a soliloquy or speaking to yourself is that when you're staying all alone, then all of a sudden you feel inspired and you think to yourself, oh, I need to do this. There's this plan that comes up in your mind and you think, I need to do this, I have to do this. Up to this point, this hasn't worked out. From now on, I need to do better, I need to do this. And so in this way, when you're thinking about it, it's like you're inspired. Generally, when we talk about a soliloquy or speaking to yourself, normally we speak about Dharma and we teach it outside to others, but it's not like that. Sometimes we need to turn it inside. We need to direct ourselves inside and speak to ourselves. We need to advise ourselves. We need to consult with ourselves and advise ourselves. Sometimes always directing our words outside is not so beneficial. And instead, we need to think about them inside. When we think about always teaching others, then often it's like the person who's teaching the Dharma has no real practice themselves. And it's like as Drupad Kunne said, whenever you see a throne set up for someone to teach Dharma, the person on top of it never has any practice. And so these are two different meanings or two different interpretations of the word soliloquy.
Gegen Dumamici, gay gas of the Lomebe, Gagar Giduta, me Zi Chijunda, Dogu Chi Machida, me Chap Mija, Suchi del Chab, Chi Yambe, Sendi Tawalini, Chilaya, Lomiju was a governor, Do Yam, Sendi Chidar Song, Song Yamne, Sendi Karjila Tongu.
Have no ambitions for old age. I think that without any thought of living until you are old, you should have no concern at all for whether you will be happy or sad in old age, whether people will respect you, whether you will have enough food and clothing, or whether people will criticize you. You should think, let people do as they will, and have no thought for the ways and means of this life. You should think, whatever will be in this life will be, and leave it to karma.
Wang Long Cheese, love the sun, cheese at the layer, and the share of Mambujore. Diana, the name Yami Yudozi, cheese, Nalolea, cheese at the Miseg Daji, Catra, Congitan, the share of G, Ninja Somaro, Daji, the share that this Chicara, that Gamon Sharp, the G.
Now, we often talk about the empowerments, transmissions, and instructions. There are many different interpretations of what we mean by instructions. But in the instructions by the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje, there's a particular nice explanation, and by nice, it's a rather humorous explanation of the meaning.
The treaty na Harasundusana, Gupti, do Migu does it, Daisy, Kagyu Nalone. Kamsan alone, me you does the tea gashing windows. Gee, Lomatis, tea dashing windows. Yawa command was been missing that G. Yawaras, me you does the teas and gashing windows, the dishing in the choice. Just a continental tea and a tisha, and this are cashing, then get tea gashing windows, the dishing those. The Dembaresta teas at the Carson Miji. Net teen in roars. Gee, the Industan Daji. Tisa the Kawati go as a midget net teen in roar. Tisa the Kawati or Sana. Daji, Gushi, Carjoy, Sangi Salia, teen in roar. Roro Chimindus, Sujige. The reading here caress tea or a star. Near teen, a parting at the end of the Mangage and Roro Chimindus. Dene Hindustane ngala thapsi ga mendus. Quran su shia debares ngeti teaching mendus kares an Quran su phaten rodus. Jeza ti zade hoachi trish. Lamna ti ni kandarji disangi lamse didijere da zugu zu ni lamna tene da ijike da mas guide chin dine ban ro redas labdu delan ro mi so ne be chisa kalo pa chinje chimbina ane ta ti ya ke yo marada dine dusa ti gyu zen dene tadanga lojong ti kabde lojong ti cheri ya de chesa lojong ti cha de da ngone dine sangi 살아 그라 만조단 이주카 로나 드네 로단 줄루 어다 지 가르레 지 드디제레다 주주 윤주산 디 주주번은 디제는 롤 딘롤 마손 디제는 마손 티야메와 티야메요마 제사 디균센 데네 다 디고아디 아버지도 섬자
Now, the Tibetan word that we translate as instruction actually means guidance. And so at that point, at that time when Mikyu Dorje was around, there were some people who said that Mikyu Dorje doesn't... there were some people who said that Mikyu Dorje does not know how to give good instructions. He doesn't know how to give good guidance. He's not like his predecessors. Mikyu Dorje does not know how to give guidance and instructions. And so he wrote in his instructions that some people say that I don't know how to give good instructions, how to give good guidance. And that's quite true. I don't know how to give good guidance. No matter how much I guide people, no one will go where I guide them. When I give instructions, when I give guidance, it's to guide people to the four kayas, to the state of Buddhahood, but no one's going to go. No matter how much I try to pull them along, they just won't budge and they won't come. And so there's no point. If they won't move, then it's not guidance. It's like when you teach or we give instructions. You're pointing the way. You're showing the path. And if no one else and if the other people will not go and they end up going somewhere else, then it's not guidance at all. And so it's the same here with these instructions or guidance on mind training. These are instructions that if we follow them will actually take us to the level of Buddhahood if we will go. They are pointing the way. They are showing how it is we're supposed to go and showing the path. And so we must go. If we do not go, then they give no guidance. And so I think this is a very nice interpretation of the word.
제가 급딜리아다 조디 가주에스나 다 지당기 게시보도와 코란 지 오늘은 미다발 냠시 조르 난디면로 제가 디규젤 때네 토르 그뒤네 지 가주에 다 롱메바 서머가 다지 다지 데론 요마레 다 뒤주 요마레 서머로 딘디지기 베 가르 토르 투디 지 쳇주야라 투디 사바다 쳇주야라 베지 가주에 다지 땅 하나 들으면서 이제 대화해야 되니 드리지기 딱 가사로 차리가 그래 제가 디균세 된다 드리지 용과한테 가르쳐 버렸으나 다 조디 치와입니다 왜 규를 치와입니다 왜 규를充满了 대신에 안다 증원에서 아 삼월로 시규이만 다 쳐서도스 아주 미진나라야 다 최대비 니주시라요 맞다 니주 망고치 지 가르레 타치 가르레 지 드데 용고 말하지 아주 타지 땡땡지 아주 타제도 깔 하고 싶어 나 이번에 타체도 지구도 가르잖아 지구도 다 타체자다 그 제외 님은 지구인 뭐 타체자를 다들이야 아주 양거지 아직 타체인 지구인다 미나스 지 양가 삼 동고 얼마나 다 지구인바다 타체 다 되네 다 난신 거두시기 예매디 하고요 거두시기 예매디 하고는다 아주 양지 대지 처시로 söze 다 니두 내가 되자이 니네 데바도 내가 되자이 니네 데바도 내가 신다 자이 대지 섭단을 쏴요 대 자신을 쏴요 말았어 가두시기 하고 말았어. 다와나 지기대 가라서나 지 치외기 지 년가 됐어. 지 치와 영하게 년가 됐어. 하고나 대미용야 원고체. 봐. 나서든지 명야를 원고 갑자는 시. 원고체나. 근데 바지 시그 말에 선사를 댕거 봐. 이내 따뜻 갈아가고 싶어. 네 지금 말해서 지가 요 말해서 강가로 치위 괜찮으로스. 니주 강가로 치위 괜찮으로스. 제가 네 지금 말다. 저랑 네 전에 연가요 말은 네 자원이네 지금 말해서지现在갈아가고 싶어. 참선 서서 말지는 장바산에야 신도가 좀 먹고 싶어. 아, 야디 장바산에지 아주 배율에 맛이 장바디서 장바 까먹고랑 감지. 디나로를 차다시다 강가 뭐를 장바 까먹고 까먹고랑 감지. 삼성 디사다 마시네. 디 장바 딘드는 가네. 안 가시 딘데 싫어 그랬어. 제가 치외견 많다去顺便见就是치외견 차용주사 치외견들라 원고체자는 많다去니 치요는 니 견신의 시거는 니 견신 시거 말해서 매딩에 상월로기 지 치외견 차루여빈 다 원고체 매
The great Potowa himself, I think, his primary practice was the meditation on impermanence. And so he had a great realization of death. He had felt like, it seemed like he was in a great hurry. He felt like it was like he had no time to waste, that he had no time to sit still. It was like he was always worrying about whether he would be able to accomplish Dharma. So he was an individual who was always in a great hurry to practice the Dharma. And I think the reason for this is that the main point is that death and impermanence is definite. It's definite that we will die in this life. There is not much in this life that is certain. There are many situations where we can say maybe this will happen or maybe that will happen, but we cannot definitely say whether or how anything will happen. But there is one thing that is definite, and that is that we are going to die. From the very moment that, or from the day we have been born, it is certain, it is definite that we are going to die. We may not know how or when, but it is certain that at some point we are going to die. And yet we do not know when we are going to die. And because we do not know when we are going to die, we start making plans. We think to ourselves, oh, I'll do this for this amount of time, and then at that point I'll do this or that. And yet we cannot really make any plans. We do not know whether when we will die or whether we will get them. And so we will. There's this great danger of death, and it's a great. And we need to understand that there is a great danger of death, and that there is nothing we can do to inoculate ourselves from death to make certain that we are not going to die. It is definite that we're going to die. And so we really cannot say that what is going to cause our death. There are many things that will cause death, and even the things that support our life, even the things that sustain us, can also become the causes of dying. So we cannot say, if you do this, you will die. If you don't do that, you will not die. Or if you do that, you will not die. We cannot prevent it. In fact, even eating tsampa, we can even die eating tsampa. Like in my homeland, we mix tsampa and tea, and if you don't know how to mix it well, then it gets stuck in your throat. You can choke on it and die. There are many people who've died this way. And so there are too many causes of death. And even the causes of life, the things that sustain us in this life, can eventually cause our death. So we do not know what will eventually cause our life, and there is no. We do not know what will eventually cause our death, and there is no way that we can inoculate ourselves so that we will not die.
어다드네기 지치와 미다바 지다 권수변의 신기 어저기 된다 삼단스 까망이랑 곰자인다.
And so now please think about the meaning of death and impermanence and meditate on it for 5 minutes.